So can everybody hear me? And is this a good for the camera? Awesome. Well, hello. Thank you guys so much for choosing to spend your time with us. My name is Courtney Williams. And so really quick, if you're comfortable answering it, or if you're not, it's totally okay. But do we have any actual medical professionals here? Raise your hand. Okay. And so then do we have anybody who's currently living with a medical problem or a neurological problem that they're kind of looking for ways to live with? Well, hello. Hello. I am as well. That is why I have my little friend here. So my name is Courtney Williams. I'm 25 years old, and I live in Springfield, Virginia. I am accompanied by my parents. This is Susan and Jim. Jim is the chauffeur, and Susan is the service mom. So we have a nice little backup. But I know that you guys are actually here to hear a little bit about my story, but particularly for this handsome little fellow that is standing right here. So this is Zido. That's Fido with a Z. I did not get to name him, but I did get to give him his middle name. So his name is Zido Mason Williams. I went to George Mason University, so obviously we had to give a little shout out to that. And Zido is what's called a cardiac alert service dog. So I'm going to go into a little bit about what he does for me, kind of where I was at before I was partnered with him, as well as the services that he provides and where we're at in our life right now. And then I'd love to open it up. I know my mom handed out some cards for if you had any questions. I'd love to open it up for a little bit of a question and answer, because I find that that's where we get the most input out of and the most insight. So for the last 15 years, can I get a drink of water? For the last 15 years, I've been living with an autonomic nervous system disorder. And I know that any of you that are familiar with that term, that's kind of like saying when somebody asks you, where do you live? And you say, America. And they're like, well, no, like, what city do you live in? And you're like, America. Like, it's not really an answer. But that is because after the 15 years of living with it, the diagnosis that my doctors came up with is that it's an unknown autonomic nervous system disorder. Of the known disorders that exist, I have bits and pieces of each of them, but I don't fit perfectly into one of them. So they think that the reason for it is either, thank you parents, something incredibly recessive about my mom and something incredibly recessive about my dad came together and did this, because I do have an older brother and an older sister, and they don't exhibit any of these symptoms. So that's one option, so thank you. And then the other option that they came up with was that it was some form of a mutation of my embryo, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, gave my older brother and older sister a much better form of ammunition. They now had doctor approval that their little sister was a mutant, so we kind of went with that one as well. But basically what happens when I have an episode, which is what Zido is here primarily for. I do have some other symptoms, such as neuropathy, as well as some gastro problems. But Zido's main job is for when I lose consciousness. Basically what happens when my body undergoes stress of any kind, whether that's happy stress of moving back on campus or starting school or getting married, my body kind of doesn't really know how to handle it. So bad stress as well, whether it's a loss in the family, a loss of a pet, going back to school, I guess really kind of goes for both of them, getting married. No, husband's not here, he's fine. So basically what happens is that my body doesn't know how to handle that stress. So it kind of does what we jokingly say is Control-Alt-Deletes itself. It basically will shut off, whereas your body goes into shock and your adrenaline kicks in, my body just turns off. So I will be out for upwards of about 45 minutes to an hour. And during that time, I will stop breathing, my heart rate slows, my pupils are fixed and dilated. And while I can hear everything that is going on around me, I can't respond and I can't wake up. So I always get a little bit teary-eyed when I say this, but if you haven't experienced something like that, I don't think there's anything more terrifying than being completely helpless and hearing your parents say that she's not breathing and not being able to do anything about it. So I had been living like this for, at this point, it was about 9 or 10 years. And I was going into college, and I was in college, and we knew that I had to choose a college that was close to home and close to a good hospital, but I still wanted the freedom that every 18-year-old wants. So I was given the opportunity to live on campus. But my sophomore year of college, my episodes started getting worse. So I reached a point where, as everybody else that I was going to school with was thinking about what are they going to do for their future, what do they want to do as their job, I was sitting there with the focus of, am I ever going to be able to actually move out of my parents' house? Love you guys, but seriously. Yes. So I was trying to figure out, okay, I have come to terms with the fact that the doctors have told me that all signs are pointing to this never going away. We don't know what it is, so there's no medicine that we can give you to help with it. But from what we've found, it is progressive, it's getting worse, and we don't know how to help you. So rather than be incredibly scared by hearing that your doctors say that, because let me tell you, that's really comforting to hear your doctors say. Rather than be really scared with it, I was trying to figure out the best way to live in spite of it. So my mom's best friend, Miss Michelle, she is in Arizona. She's basically a second mom to me. Hello.
We didn't know you started already.
Oh, well, hello. You are no problem.
Sorry.
Oh, gosh, please don't worry about it. So Miss Michelle, she lives in Arizona, and she's basically like a second mom to me. I've known her almost all of my life. She is really involved with therapy dogs and animal-assisted therapy. And she told my mom, you know, I really, really think that Courtney might qualify for a service dog. That was something that my doctors had been talking to me about animal-assisted therapy, like horseback riding or ways to reduce stress. But we hadn't really investigated service dogs. And when I started researching, I did find a couple places, and I actually put in an application to one, but I ended up not qualifying because for a lot of the organizations, you have to have a name for your diagnosis so that they would know what to train your dog for. And since I unfortunately don't have a name for my diagnosis, I didn't qualify. So we got back in contact with Miss Michelle, and she said, you know, there's this organization, it's in Cochranville, Pennsylvania. We live in Springfield, I think I already said that, but Cochranville, Pennsylvania, it's about 4 hours away from you, and they are incredibly reputable, and they're small, and they are, excuse me, his leash is wrapped around my waist, so I always wonder when I have to like turn around, do people think I just dance with my dog? No, his leash is wrapped around my waist, so when he moves, I have to untangle. So it's Canine Partners for Life, and it's in Cochranville, Pennsylvania. And they are not only incredibly reputable, they are very personable, and they understand the financial aspect and the financial responsibility of having a service dog. All of the organizations that I came in contact with, insurance does not cover service dogs, which, total side note, is confusing because in the eyes of the law, a service dog is identical to a wheelchair, but in the eyes of insurance, a service dog is not identical to a wheelchair. How that makes sense, I do not know. So Canine Partners for Life, what they do, so they estimate that from birth until death, each dog costs them about $30,000. But they only ask for a $2,000 to $4,000 donation from those of us that are partnered with service dogs. And the reason why they call it a donation is because as long as you can confirm that you can financially support your dog for the rest of their life, they don't want to allow money to come between your ability to find help. So we went up and we called, my mom's sister and I went up, and we were talking with this woman who she herself was actually partnered with a cardiac alert dog. And I was telling her about my symptoms, and that basically what my doctors have found is that my heart as a muscle is completely fine. But they've noticed that when I have an episode, my heart rate spikes and my blood pressure drops. And from doing multiple heart studies on it, they found that while my heart as a muscle is totally fine, my brain sends it the wrong signals. So my heart is responding correctly to the incorrect signals of my brain. So as I was telling her this, she said, you know, I really think that what you have, even though it's a neurological condition, I think you might qualify for a cardiac alert dog. Because what cardiac alert dogs do is they wouldn't be able to note when that message is about to be sent, but they can tell you once your heart has received that message. And what they do is they tell you your heart rate is getting really high, you need to sit down, you need to lay down, and that's called alerting. So I wasn't really sure what she was talking about. I didn't really understand it until she took me on a tour, and her dog that she was training at the time, he kept kind of jumping in front of me when we were walking, and my first thought was, these dogs are not well trained. Like, this dog is kind of cutting me off, and like, I don't really know. And then he got in front of me and he just kind of stared at me. And the lady asked me, she was like, are you okay? Like, are you feeling okay? And I was like, well, yeah, kind of. And she was like, do you happen to know what your heart rate is? And many of us who have heart problems know that you can check on your phone a lot of times or on your watch. Hello, Samsung Active, Galaxy Active. It's wonderful. I love it. And so I checked, and sure enough, my heart rate, I think it was at like 130. And she said, actually, he's alerting you right now. And immediately, I just was stunned, silent that this was happening. My mom and sister broke down in tears. They just completely broke down. And I put in the application that night. So the way that his organization does it is you put in an application. When your application is accepted, then you come in for an interview. And during that interview, they ask you basically lifestyle questions, what you do, where you're hoping to go with it, as well as if you could pick your ideal dog, what would they be and what kind of personality would they have. So then, after the interview, you're informed if you are put on their wait list. And then once you're on the wait list, you're waiting. What you don't know, or what you do know, is that on the sidelines, the dogs are going through a very similar process. So what CPL does is they primarily breed their dogs. They are, in order to keep bloodlines not too close, they are part of kind of a dog swap consortium with other service dog organizations, just to, again, keep the bloodlines not too close. And then they breed their dogs. So then once the puppies are born, they are pretty much immediately testing them. They're looking for just what their natural instincts are. When they put an obstacle in front of them, do they shy away? Do they go towards it? Do they figure out that they can climb over it or around it? Basically, what is the dog's natural instinct? And then, for the first year of their life, all of the dogs are either put into a puppy home, which is a local community home or a family that has volunteered to raise them for the first year of their life, or the puppies go into, CPL has an agreement with, I believe it's 7 or 9 local prisons, and there is a prison puppy program where prisoners raise the puppy, which I could go for a whole hour on the prison puppy program. It is so mutually beneficial and just amazing. But then, during that first year, whether they are in the prison or whether they are at homes, they are going through intense training. They're learning over 30 commands, basic obedience, as well as some basic service skills. And every month, those that are in the home, as well as those that are in the prison, they either go to CPL or CPL comes to them 3 times a month, and they are going through basic training with that as well. Excuse me. So then, once the first year is done, the people bring the puppies back to CPL, and CPL does some basic testing there as well. So that's when they look at their bone structure, their hips, making sure that they're healthy, because labs, if you don't know, are very prone to having some hip dysplasia and problems with that. Looking at if they have allergies, looking at just their overall health, as well as noting if they have the ability to alert. So you cannot train a dog to be able to alert to cardiac or to seizure problems. It's just something that a dog has the ability to, or they don't. So they estimate that theoretically, if there were to be 10 puppies in a litter, 7 of those puppies would go on to becoming service dogs of some kind. The other 3 would be what we lovingly call released from the program. And that is, honestly, that is because they are completely normal dogs. They love squirrels. They're too friendly. They like to hunt. They just have natural prey drive. So then those puppies are put up for adoption. Which, fun fact, if you're looking at adopting one of those puppies, it is just as rigorous of an application process. So those 3 puppies will be released from the program. And then of the 7 that continue, they estimate that 1 or maybe 2 will have the ability to alert. And then the other ones will be mobility support or home companion dogs. And so then, during that second year of training, if they continue on in the process, then they're refining their public access skills, refining their general service skills, and then when they reach the end of their second year, then the organization looks at the people that are on their wait list, and then they look at the puppies that are, or at the dogs at that point that are ready to be paired. And so they pair, and it's basically like an online dating thing. It's the weirdest thing because you get a call and you're basically told, we think we have a match for you. So what happened for me was they called and they said, hey, we'd love for you to come up, and we have a dog that we think would be a good match, and we want you to come up and meet them. And so we went up, and they don't want you to know exactly which dog it's going to be. So when I went up there with my dad, they had me walk with 3 different dogs. And what they were looking for is my how quickly I walk, how slowly I walk, as well as height, weight, everything, personality, to see if it's a match. And afterwards, mind you, how hard is it to say, of these 3 absolutely adorable, amazing puppies, yes, this one's my favorite. It's almost impossible. But they asked me, were there any that you might have that you feel something with? And I was like, actually, the yellow one, he kind of, I don't know, something about that. And they were like, well, funny enough, he's the one that we wanted to partner you with. So we're actually really glad that you felt that too. So then at that point, they spend 2 to 3 months training that dog specifically for your lifestyle. So they knew that I had plans to work in the city, so they focused more on making sure that he was really good with trains, making sure that he was really good with crowds of people, whereas other people, if they lived on a farm, then they would make sure that the dog is really comfortable with different farm animals, different farm smells. And then at that point, you go up for 3 weeks, and they basically train you how to have a service dog. And you go through the certification process and everything. And then for the rest of our partnership, every 6 months, we send in a report to CPL. Every 2 years, we go up and we are recertified. And then we have their phone number saved to our phone for the rest of our lives. We are able to contact them at any point. So that's kind of my spiel about CPL and Go Canine Partners for Life. Here is their information. But I want to go a little bit more into what Zido does for me specifically. So Zido's main job is that he does alert me. His way of alerting, it really kind of depends on my level of stubbornness. It usually starts with he will pop up and stare at me with this really intense stare. But you can ask my parents, I'm a little stubborn. So if I don't notice that, then what he will do, or if I don't see him, like if he's under my desk at work, then he will lick me this really, really deep lick that's like more than just, hey, you taste good. Like I'm trying to talk to you, pay attention to me. If I still don't pay attention to that, like I said, he is, which you laugh, it happens all the time. As you noticed, he's leashed to my waist. So when we're walking, if I'm still not paying attention, he will cut in front of me. There has even been one time, which actually, I think it's been 3 times now, where I have been so stubborn and I have been so into a conversation with somebody that he has wrapped me in his leash to the point that I could not walk because he kept walking around me. So once I finally get the message, I will sit down, and he does not trust me that I will actually fully stay down. So he will sit on me. He'll sit in my lap, and if he wants me to lay down, he will back up and push his little bum to my chest, push me down, and lay on me. And that kind of serves many purposes. The other fun thing with dogs is, just like you can't teach them to be able to alert, you can't teach them what they're going to do once they alert. So each dog comes up with how they are going to get used to it. However, they are not allowed to vocalize. They are not allowed to bark. They are not allowed to growl. So it has to be a silent alert of some kind. So this is the one that worked for us, was sitting on me. And once he tells that my heart rate or my blood pressure has gotten back to normal, then he will pop up and we will keep going on our way. So as he's laying on me, it does serve kind of multiple purposes of, one, I can't can't get up. So I have to listen to him. But it also is kind of like a pressure, like a heating blanket as well, because even though I do not have seizures, they have confirmed that I do not have seizures, my muscles do tense up. So him laying on me, it does kind of serve as like a slight relaxant for that, we could say. And then he will also, if it is my blood pressure, then what he will do as his way of alerting is he knocks his nose against the back of my knee. And it kind of makes me like buckle a little bit so that I have to lay down. And I think people sometimes get scared when I say like he alerts me almost every day, thinking that I am having an episode almost every single day. His alerting is meant to keep an episode from happening. So his alerting, while it happens most every day, he actually kept me for 1,146 days without having an episode. My last batch was from October 24th, 2014 to January 12th, 2018. Might have been happening on January 13th was my wedding day. And if you have been married, you know that it's an incredibly stressful event. And apparently the day before the wedding was just when the stress hit the fan. So Zido did alert, but I did unfortunately end up having an episode. But during that episode, Zido was there. He was completely there. He jumped. I did not even know that a 74-pound dog could do this. He jumped so far onto me and pinned me on the bed. And he is good at allowing my family and whoever needs to get close and take care of me. But you can ask them. Again, I'm unconscious, but I could tell he was right there. He was licking me. He was, at one point, he kept touching my leg. And I could hear that my family was saying that my muscles were fine. We don't really know what's happening. But when they noticed that my leg had turned in, and so it was stiff, and he was kind of telling them something's wrong with this one. So he is 100% there. And since then, I wrote it down. It has now been, we are at 476 days of my latest batch of being episode free. So since being partnered with Zido, yes, I moved out of my parents' house. I did. Thank you. I did. It's just as exciting for them as it is for me. I graduated with summa cum laude from George Mason University. Zido did graduate with me. He had a cap and gown as well. His said, I am so proud of this. Came up with it on my own. I don't know if you guys know that you can like decorate your caps. His said, slept through every class, still graduating. And they said his name. So it was just a really powerful moment. When I did get married, Zido was in the wedding. He was the dog of honor. I currently work in the middle of Washington, D.C. I'm a graphic designer at a local association. And so I work 30 to 40 minutes away from the security of home. And Zido is with me every single step of the way. We ride public transportation. We actually slug. I don't know if anybody knows about slugging. It's a carpool system where you ride with a stranger every single day. It sounds super sketchy, but it's really legit, and I get to work on time. And I basically have a freedom that I kind of lost hope of ever being able to find. And I fully give the credit to Zido and to God for creating a dog that has the ability to do that. So I think that was kind of all that I wanted to talk about. I did want to point out with the blog, the day after I was partnered with Zido, I started a blog. So this Z and Me is kind of how we document, or I document. He can't write, he's a dog. Whatever. He probably could. If he had a thumb, I'm sure he could. But that's where I not only document what my life is like with a service dog, but I love answering questions that people have about service dogs, because 5 years ago, before I was partnered with a dog, knew nothing about service dog. I knew nothing about service dog etiquette. I didn't understand what it was like to have a service dog. But I also, and I forgot to say this before, that for the first 9 or 10 years that I had this condition, and many of you that have invisible disabilities might be able to relate to this, I thought it was a huge blessing that it was an invisible disability and nobody had to know. I didn't have to tell anybody that I didn't want to. Well, when you get a service dog there is a giant 75-pound beacon that there is something different about you. And that was really scary for me, was to basically have to become public about something that a lot of people didn't know about. But it has been the most beautiful thing I think that I have done in my life, is to start becoming a part of a community that I had kind of shunned myself away from. But to be part of the disability community is something that is amazing, and I love being able to share that perspective with anybody. So all of that to say, check out my blog. Feel free to leave questions or anything on there. And I would love, if we have time, did I go over?
We started late.
Okay. It happens every single talk. I tell myself, like, you're going to stick to 20 minutes. No. So I would love to open it up if anybody has any questions. If you don't feel comfortable asking your question right now, you're more than welcome to write it down, and I will actually designate a blog post to answering it. Or if you want to leave your contact information or anything. But does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask now?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a service dog in training. She'll be a year next month. We've had her since she's 8 weeks old. We started having told us, certified service dog trainer come to the house a couple times a month.
Okay.
And he said it was okay for a verbal alert, because she's also cardiac alert.
Okay. So, one thing that I always have to keep in mind is that there is not incredibly strict regulation when it comes to service dogs. And I can speak confidently from what I know and from my experiences, and I have to actively tell myself that there are other experiences out there. I have been taught that a service dog should not vocalize because they are meant, even though they stand out from the crowd, they are meant to blend. They're meant to blend in as much as possible. So personally, I would not necessarily encourage vocalization, just because, and you know, just from walking with a service dog, that people are already scared of dogs a lot of times, that I think even if it was medically necessary to have a vocalization like that, could make it harder for your life socially.
Her last resort.
Yeah.
Because I'm stubborn like you, where I ignore a lot of her alerts.
Yeah.
So if I do not listen, she'll usually vocalize, just be like, hey, you need to sit down.
I think, and it's a little bit different, but Zido has actually vocalized an alert when I was asleep. I was sleeping, and he obviously, by the time I woke up, I realized he was laying on me and I hadn't noticed it. And it was just this little, and I woke up and I looked at it, and you could tell in his face, he was immediately like, I'm so sorry, but I really just needed to tell you. And then, it was the only thing, and please don't yell at me, like, I'm
She wouldn't be sorry.
like, hey, just talking to you. So, and I'm not a trainer, so I don't want to speak too much on that, but personally, I would encourage steering away from that.
How do we now, because this is how she's alerted, since she started alerting at 12 weeks old, happening. And she actually trained us. This is what I'm doing now, so pay attention. And it is a lot of handler's fault that doesn't listen the first 10 times.
It's easy to be stubborn.
So I'm not sure, is there a way to correct that or not, or is...
Well, so you want to take your safety first, and if she's alerting you, you got to listen to her. So it's not like you want to ignore if she's vocalizing, because that could hurt you. Maybe, again, I'm not a trainer, but maybe if she ever alerts you not vocalizing, to treat her, and to encourage that. And, obviously listen to her if she barks, and don't, what is the word I'm looking for? Reprimand. Thank you. Don't reprimand her, because you want to encourage that she's still alerting you. But maybe just make it so that the nonverbal alerts are a little bit more exciting, that she might go with that.
So in your opinion, you think that listening to the dog's first couple of alerts is probably best?
Yep. Yeah. Yes. Listen. And also, this is just you and me. When you're on a date, okay, and you do something stupid, let's just theoretically say you trip and fall. And it's super awesome. You're playing ping pong with this really nice guy, and your dog starts alerting you. Listen to your dog for multiple reasons. One, your safety. But two, it serves as a really great kind of threshold with the guy of like, if you're not okay with my dog sitting on me right now, I don't need you in my life. Fast forward, he's now my husband, so he's totally okay with it. But yeah, listen to your dog and definitely encourage the positive behavior that you're looking for. And I just realized that if we have time, I do have a couple demonstrations of things that he does for me. If we have the time, I don't. Okay, I can just do a couple minutes of it. And if you have any other questions, we can talk afterwards. But so one of the main things that he does once I am on the ground, he is able to help me stand back up. So if you notice this harness on him, it's pretty sturdy. It's actually only about 6 pounds, but and it's distributed in a way so that it hits the strongest parts of his back without hurting his spine at all. Oh, hi.
Oh, there's Puppy. Sorry.
Oh, you're okay. So he is actually able to help me stand up by using his harness. So I am in a dress, so I'm going to try to do this in the best way possible. But one thing that I always tell the children when I do service dog talks with children, but I'm going to tell adults anyway, please do not do this to your dogs at home because they are not trained to do this, and you could really, really hurt them if you do it wrong. So. All right, so I am on the ground. Hi. So I'm on the ground. My alert just finished. Susie, stand. So I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but when I give him the command, he puts his paws and he braces, and I don't know if you could tell, I just put 100% of my weight on his back. So the way that he is able to do it is because this harness distributes that weight, and because I don't put too much weight on, because I don't put it too much on his bum, I don't hurt his hips with that. But so he's able to help me with that. He is also able to pick items up for me so that I don't get dizzy standing down or bending down. So we are going to do, thank you very much.
I'm well trained too.
So if you can't tell, we practice a lot with this, and he loves this one. But there's one that he doesn't really like, which is keys. Because dogs, obviously, as humans probably, don't like metal in our mouths.
Right.
So we work on, Susie, getting those picked up. Keys. Yeah.
I'm gonna get plastic.
Yep.
Plastic.
Just a little closer.
I just like the keys, Mom.
It's like, really? Thank you. Good job. So you can those up for me. And so then, because I am 25 years old and not paying off student loans at all, obviously I am loaded. So I go shopping a lot and buy a lot of things that sometimes I don't want to carry all around. So Zido is trained to be able to carry items for me. This is another one that dogs do not like because that's annoying. Susie, take it. Not what's in there, take it. Good boy. Oh, try it.
He can't figure out the handles.
He can very well figure
Oh, he just doesn't want to. Oh my goodness.
I have a sock in there. One of the other things he does is he can take my socks off, and this is apparently from the last demonstration.
He also likes to open Christmas presents.
He can come and open mine.
Oh boy. And there was one other thing that I can't think of that I wanted to show you guys, but one of the main things that they tell us is that while these dogs are incredibly well trained, they are dogs. They are not robots. And there are days when he does not want to work, just like there's days when we don't want to work, but we still do go to work. And I wish you could, when we have a little bit bigger of a space, you're able to see it well, that when he is working, his tail is going. He absolutely loves his job. He loves working, and he loves that we get to spend all day together, all the time. So,
And he loves you.
and he loves me, and I love him. So that is our story. Once again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free. We'll be around out in the hallway for a little bit, as well as if you leave any comments on my blog, I will be more than happy to get them answered for you.
Thank you.
What'd you say?
Is he cardiac alert as well?
He has a cardiac alert service dog. Yeah.
Yeah, I would need one that does both.
Yeah.
Can you give me medicine?
I'm sorry.
Can you bring me medicine?
So he like my pill bottles. I would never. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can
that's what I mean. Obviously not pills, but.
go take it.
This is one of those I don't feel like working on. So.
He's like, Mom, all these people are looking. Come here.
Oh.
Thank you.
He'll also go in the refrigerator for her and grab a bottle of water if she needs it. Brings it to her.
That's another one. Yeah. And
This is great.
she doesn't even really breathe.
Love it.
He's laying on her.
Well,
She's
he's
pretty
keeping her-
small.
He's keeping her safe.
It honestly, when he's like laying on my diaphragm or something, I can kind of move him and we work around it, but you do kind of get used to it. And also it kind of helps, it forces me to take shallow breaths, like not in like a hyperventilating way, but like to just focus.
It's almost like counter pressure.
Yeah.